Well, members of the American Law Institute, it is my particular pleasure and honor to welcome to the podium someone well known to us, Jeff Hazard, someone also well known to us, our council member, Judge Tony Scirica, and Justice Alito of the United States Supreme Court.
Thank you, dear. Enough seats here.
No, I'm fine. You just throw my name in.
You also. Also over here.
Okay, sit there. Well, good morning. I'm Tony Scirica, and it is an absolute thrill that Justice Alito is able to be with us this morning. This is a special occasion for all of us at the ALI, and of course it is a very special occasion for Jeff, his former teacher. I apologize for the late notice, but knowing how busy the court is at the end of the term, I hesitated asking Justice Alito to participate in this. But when a few months ago, when we were together for a wonderful symposium in honor of Attorney General Edward Levy, I mentioned to Justice Alito that the ALI was going to honor Jeff at the annual meeting in mid-May. His eyes lit up, and he said, "If I'm free, I'd love to come." And so when we talked last week, and he was freed up, I said, "Could you say a few words?" And his response was, "I'd love to." So we are a tag team, and at least in this endeavor, I don't think I'm going to get reversed. We hope it will be like a twins' birthday party, twice the amount of ice cream and cake. If you've ever played tennis with Jeff, the first thing you notice is that he is a good athlete. The second thing you notice is that he has no apparent weaknesses. The third is that the point of playing the point is to win it. And the last thing is that he is generous, gracious, and fun to play with.
Even in defeat.
Amen. And if you play mixed doubles with him, as we often did together with our wives, all of the above also applies. If Jeff had been a professional tennis player, by now he would have won multiple Grand Slams on different surfaces on different continents, having displayed unmatched skills, unflagging stamina, and exquisite finesse, all the while earning the respect and admiration of younger players as he nurtured their careers. In short, he would have been one of those magnificent players who transformed the game. And so we are here this morning to celebrate a stunning career. Few lawyers in the last half-century have had a more profound effect or more profound impact on the state of the law than Jeff Hazard. And few have had the ability to bridge and connect the worlds of the Academy of Law Practice and the Administration of Justice. Law professor at several great law schools, prolific scholar, author of textbooks, legendary teacher, mentor, rulemaker of procedural rules and rules of attorney conduct, and of course, the former director of the American Law Institute. Geoff continues to leave an indelible imprint on the American and international legal systems. He is truly one of the law's wise men. For 15 years, as you know, Geoff was the director of the ALI. He was an exemplary leader, from recommending restatement topics and selecting reporters to sagaciously guiding the projects to successful completion. Working with Geoff on drafting a restatement was an amazing experience. The first thing you realized was that Geoff knew the text, understanding its strengths and weaknesses. Then you realized his extraordinary ability as a lawyer, characterized by penetrating insights, historical references, and the ability to foresee consequences and then craft wise resolutions. When the drafting got stuck, Geoff always managed to move it forward by asking a question that unlocked the conundrum, by suggesting a new approach, or sometimes by deferring resolution for more thought. Whether direct or indirect, his orchestration was masterful. One example cited by Mike Traynor suffices. During a discussion of the Restatement Third of the Law Governing Lawyers, Geoff said, "I think gray area illustrations are dangerous, and I would strongly urge the reporters to give what I call bookends, one that is clearly, you can't do that, and the other one clearly, you can do this, and not try to go beyond that in nuance. You are just asking for trouble if you try to do that." Harold Coe once observed that watching Geoff drive ALI sessions to closure was a lesson on how a great lawyer can tighten and make rigorous any text, whether she is a lifelong expert or, in Geoff's case and in his words, just a damn good lawyer asking damn hard questions. We all have seen that Geoff has a singular capacity to see points of agreement where others only see discord. Could anyone have expressed more poignantly what Conrad Harper said on the occasion of Geoff's retirement, when he described Geoff as the rightful successor to Herbert Wexler, saying that it had been a stunning 15 years. Of the many restatements that Geoff worked on, and he worked on two as the reporters, at least one deserves special mention today. And that is the ALI Una Drop Principles and Rules of Transnational Civil Procedure. This was Geoff's creation from conception to completion. There was early skepticism that the project could ever be accomplished. Geoff understood those concerns, and he expertly navigated a course through the common and civil law systems, their different philosophies and histories, cultures and traditions, constraints and expectations, to explore and define first principles and to find common ground. The result was a stunning achievement. The ALI has long been recognized worldwide as a uniquely valuable institution. Other countries considering whether to create a similar model have asked Geoff for advice and counsel. And in recent years, Geoff has been sought out by legal institutions in the European Union and in Latin America. And just recently, he has been sought out again by UNIDROIT to fine-tune the transnational principles and rules. As Mike Traynor has noted, Geoff has strengthened the ALI as a prized institution in the life of our country and worldwide. Jeff's counsel has not been confined to the national and international stages. He is an exemplary teacher. For well over a decade, we have collaborated in teaching a seminar at Penn Law School on civil procedure and complex litigation. A few years ago, we had the good fortune to be joined by Professor Kathy Struve. Each year, early on in the semester, the students awaken to Jeff's peerless tutelage and marvel at their incredible good fortune. Few teachers can match his vast knowledge or the way he deftly places legal problems in historical context, plumbing underlying principles, and tying together the procedural and substantive law. He teaches students to understand the indeterminacy of law and how to work with it. An apostle of rigorous thinking and clear exposition, as he would say, just describe the metes and bounds. Jeff takes ample time to help students develop and refine their analytical skills. Throughout this distinguished career, Jeff has been a wonderful mentor to young law professors. His seemingly inexhaustible willingness to counsel and nurture younger colleagues has been affectionately recorded in a series of tributes in a recent Penn Law Review by Dean Michael Fitz, Dean Harold Coe, and Professors Stephen Burbank, Catherine Struve, and Tobias Wolff. As a scholar whose articles and insights have shaped the course of doctrine in many areas, Jeff has been a figure of immense influence. But he's also a rulemaker. For several years, we served together on the Committee on Rules of Practice and Procedure of the United States Judicial Conference, commonly known as the Standing Committee. In my more than a decade of experience on the Rules Committees, no member has ever made a greater contribution. And of course, there is more. For decades, Jeff has been at the center of legal ethics, scholarship, and reform, developing and deliberating upon the rules of attorney and judicial conduct. He has made seminal contributions largely through different committees of the American Bar Association, including the ABA Ethics 2000 Commission, which resulted in a comprehensive revision of the model rules, and also through his great work on the Restatement Third of the law governing lawyers. A few years ago, Jeff initiated a new law course, different from his customary classes on civil procedure, federal jurisdiction, and legal ethics. It was called The Foundations of Western Moral Thought. Drawing heavily from the Bible, from Plato and Aristotle, the seminar moved to an exploration of St. Augustine, Maimonides, and beyond. The seminar was a natural outgrowth of a concentrated course of study that Jeff commenced some years ago. The fruits of this exploration is a book published this year by Jeff and Doug Pinto entitled Moral Foundations of American Law. And it contains tributes from Gerhard Casper, from Mike Traynor, and from David Levy, and in which David Levy describes Jeff as the embodiment of Aristotelian practical wisdom. It's always good to save the best for last, and that is Beth Hazard, who, as you know, is so remarkable and compassionate and lovely. And their amazingly wonderful and loving life that Beth and Jeff have together, and how their lives have touched and comforted and inspired so many of us here in this room, as they have taken us into their affectionate and sagacious fold. How lucky we all are. Thank you very much. Before I introduce Justice Alito, I would like to describe what the Distinguished Service Award is, and to thank Mary Schroeder and her committee for the wonderful work they did and for their nomination of Jeff as the recipient. This award has only been given the fifth time, I think. This is the fifth time that it has ever been given. And it goes to a member of the ALI who has played a very special role, accepting significant responsibilities and helping to keep the Institute on a steady course as the greatest private law reform organization in the world. We can't think of a more deserving recipient than Jeff Hazard. I said at the beginning that it's a great thrill that Justice Alito was able to join us. For 15 years, we were colleagues on the Court of Appeals, and all of us miss him very much. He was the very best of colleagues. He was the very clearest of thinkers. And he did what a lot of people have said about Jeff. Whatever institution that they were associated with, they improved both the life and the character of that institution. Justice Alito served in the Solicitor General's office in the Department of Justice. He was the United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey, and then he was appointed to the Court of Appeals. It's a great pleasure to present him to you this morning. Thank you.
Well, I agree with most of it. My wife, the young lady sitting at the far end, has already been introduced to you. Next to her is Catherine Hazard, who you will infer from the last name is a close relative. My daughter, who works with the Department of Justice, I am pleased to say. And next to her is Robin Ray, whose name at birth was Robin Hazard, who is another one of my children, and who is a very skillful freelance editor of complex texts, many of them written in Italian and French, as I recall. So that there is a little international component to it. There's one remark I want to make about Sam's wonderful statement. I have always cherished the opportunity to teach. I've also cherished the opportunity to learn, and we should have a slight amendment to Sam's story about antitrust law. It is true, as he says, that as he and his colleagues came to the fifth semester of law, or whatever it is we teach at Yale, they were confronted with the fact that they both wanted very much, or they all wanted antitrust law, but our somewhat irregular procedure for making sure the slots were covered lived up to its usual level of performance, which was we didn't have anybody. So that they came by and said, I think without a whimper, but certainly in that tone, could we have a course? Well, I said, I don't know a damn thing about it. And the last time I ran into the subject was with Milton Handler at Columbia. He was terrific, but that's a long time ago. But there were four of them. If you guys will teach it to me, we'll have a seminar. And so they did. We got books, and they assigned themselves in rotation, and we had a discussion from which I greatly benefited. I assume they did as well. The other teaching experience of late that's been especially memorable for me, apart from the one that Tony mentioned of Kathy Struve, and Tony and I participate, by teleconference, to a seminar at Penn where Kathy does all the work and Tony and I pontificate, which is we're both good at what we do. So that's been a wonderful rewarding. And let me remark one other thing we've been doing at Hastings this last year. We created a new MSL, which stands, I don't think it stands for missile. I think it stands for Master of what is it, Bill? Master of Science and Law, something like that. Bill knows. Anyway, we're to have a course, I call it the doctor seminar. All the people were medical folks, 4 of them doctors, as I recall, from UCSF, which is the very excellent medical school across town in San Francisco. So we had to put together a material that we thought would be interesting and weighty and challenging to those people who turned out to be very good. And so we taught them a course that started off with the Obamacare Supreme Court decision. And we proceeded from that. It was one of the most interesting experiences because we're now trying to do what we did at Yale with Sam, and I've done with Tony and Kathy and Penn, which is to think think of this subject in a way that is intelligible to the audience you've got. And the audience we had in healthcare people were very, very smart, very well educated, but somewhat hostile, and because their idea of doctors is that we sue them. And so we had to suggest that there were a few other things that we did. But let me just close with a thought that brings in mind Herbert Wechsler, who was a great inspiration to me, a very tough guy, but a guy who radiated the idea, let's make it as good as we can, even if that involves some really serious thought. Those of you who have been in the ALI headquarters in Philadelphia will know that on the plaque on the wall is a dictum from Herb that reads as follows, responsive to the question, well, if you don't simply follow precedent, what is it you think about, was the question frequently put to the ALI. And Herb said, we should be obliged in our deliberations to give weight to all the considerations that courts, under a proper view of the judicial function, deem it right to weigh in theirs. What does that mean? Well, I fashioned an answer. The considerations that we ought to consider include what Holmes called the felt necessities of the time. Indeed, our discussion of the Penal Code this morning was an exemplar of sensitivity to the felt necessities of the time today regarding that very difficult subject are quite different from what they were when the model penal code was fashioned or approved. That is, what Holmes said correspond to what is understood to be convenient. It was not convenient in a trivial sense, but rather in a sense that the felt necessities, as they are compatible with received culture and institutional structure. Many of the issues of compatibility today, as illustrated in that very interesting discussion early this morning about the financial distresses and legal distresses, the so-called leverage out of marginal, to be derived by people who act with only marginal legality and indeed marginal illegality. As illustrated there, a fundamental problem, it'll show up again in our consumer law project, consumer contracts, is the degree to which the law should be protective or indeed paternalistic toward individuals in their relationships with organizations, including the government. In general, along that axis, and we heard it today and you'll hear it all the time, conservatives are conservative. How's that for a breakthrough? And liberals are liberal. And in my observation, the ALI has been somewhere in between. Thank you very much.
I cannot imagine a better 90th birthday present than the opportunity to hear from three such extraordinary people, nor the opportunity to honor someone who's had such a profound influence on the institution that we all love and on the American justice system. As I mentioned to Justice Alito, and some of you know, I was in Jeff's first class of civil procedure at the University of Chicago Law School. We didn't have the forewarning that you did, Justice Alito. And I, never having been in a courtroom, nor actually, I think, known anyone who was a lawyer or who was a judge, struggled through, but both Professor Hazard and I survived. However, when I was elected to the Council of the American Law Institute, about which my husband knew a lot from when I had first been invited to join, and so he knew that Jeff Hazard was its director, I called him with great excitement and said, "Sweetheart, I've been elected to the Council of the American Law Institute." And he said, "Does Professor Hazard know?" So with that, I thank you all. Jeff, the physical manifestation of this award is small, but I think you have seen that our care and appreciation to you fills more than this room. So thank you very, very much. And may I ask everybody, I think it would be a little easier if everybody just stayed seated while Justice Alito and Tony and Jeff and his family made their way out, and we can have congratulations later. So thank you very much. Thank you to Mary and the committee, and thank you, Jeff, for everything.